Welcome to this. Let's just jump right in today with a feeling that honestly kind of haunts a lot of us in the modern digital age. It's this really subtle, unsettling sensation. You know the one. You're scrolling through your camera roll, looking at hundreds of photos from a recent trip, maybe a gathering with friends or just a quiet afternoon. And the images, they're crisp, they're perfectly lit, flawlessly framed. But inside your mind, the actual feeling of that moment, it's fading. It's slipping away like water right through your fingers. And that brings us to a genuinely haunting question. Why does a photograph taken just yesterday feel somehow less real, less vivid than this hazy, completely undocumented childhood memory from decades ago? I mean, we live in a society of relentless documentarians now, right? We record absolutely everything we do, our meals, our concerts, our daily walks, yet somehow, almost incredibly, we seem to actually remember less of it. We are essentially outsourcing our lives to our devices, and it's fundamentally changing the very nature of how we experience time.
At the very heart of this paradox is a massive psychological and philosophical divide, the gap between holding on to an external record of an event and actually truly living it. When we experience something, we're fully immersed, we're vulnerable to the present moment. But when we record it, we step outside of that moment. We become an observer, framing a shot instead of living a reality. To really grasp why this shift is so deeply affecting our sense of self, we need to take a close look at the actual architecture of human memory.
So psychologists call this specific system episodic memory. And it's important to understand that this isn't just some cold filing cabinet of facts sitting in your brain. It is the system that provides us with uniquely human, deeply personal access to the things we've lived through. But how does a fleeting temporary experience actually transform into a permanent memory?
Well, the biology of how a memory forms isn't magic, but it is this incredibly fragile, precise physical event. For a memory to actually take root, it requires a perfect biological collision. Two or more biochemical factors have to come together at the exact same instant in time, and in the exact same physical space at a synapse. Think presynaptic transmission meeting postsynaptic reception. Basically, it requires your absolute undivided presence. When your attention is split, say between a beautiful sunset and the screen of your phone, that delicate simultaneous firing is completely disrupted. But a memory isn't just cold biological data either. A true lived memory is completely soaked in emotion. It requires what psychologists call an internal appraisal, a judgment that triggers this whole cascade of bodily and subjective feelings. Your heart rate shifts, your breathing changes, maybe you feel a sudden swell of joy or a sharp pang of fear. Without that physical bodily reaction, a memory really struggles to anchor itself in your mind. Neurobiologists conceptualize this powerful mind-body connection through something called the somatic marker hypothesis. It's Antonio Damasio's theory, and it suggests that these physical bodily feelings are fundamentally required for us to process our experiences. Your brain literally uses the physical feeling of an emotion to brand an experience as important. So when we mediate our experiences through a digital lens, we're often muting those somatic markers. We end up observing the emotion rather than actually feeling it in our gut. Which leads us to this incredibly beautiful, haunting concept known as autonoetic consciousness. It's the idea that episodic memory isn't just recalling data, it's our unique human ability to literally feel like we are time-traveling back to our past. Autonoesis is that profound subjective consciousness of yourself in time. It's that feeling of closing your eyes and suddenly being right back in your childhood bedroom, remembering the texture of the carpet and the warmth of the sun coming through the window. It is true, total immersion.
The crucial takeaway here is the difference between these two profound states of mind. Episodic memory requires that autonoetic feeling of re-experiencing. You have to mentally inhabit the moment again. Semantic memory, on the other hand, is just coldly knowing that something happened. Knowing that Paris is the capital of France, that's semantic. Knowing that you went to Paris because you have a photo of the Eiffel Tower on your phone, also semantic. But feeling the rain on your face as you walked along the Seine, that is episodic. And we are increasingly, almost systematically, trading the episodic for the semantic.
This huge shift brings us to a really groundbreaking concept in modern philosophy, the extended mind. Introduced by philosophers Clarke and Chalmers, the idea is that human cognition isn't strictly confined to our skulls. It can actually exceed the bounds of the individual brain and rely on external technological resources. Originally, they used the example of a simple notebook, but today, it's that glowing rectangle in your hand. We are increasingly treating our smartphones and our cloud servers as literal extensions of our minds. We trust the digital ether to hold our history, basically allowing our memories to spill outside the physical bounds of our own heads. But in doing so, we're fundamentally altering the relationship we have with our own lives. We're offloading the heavy lifting of remembering to machines.
And the bitter irony here is just breathtaking. When you look at our billions of neurons and trillions of synapses, the human brain is capable of holding roughly 10 to the 14th power bits of information. Think about that. Your mind is vastly more profound, vastly more capable than the machine in your pocket. Yet, we constantly outsource the narrative of our lives to devices that possess only a fraction of that biological depth. This massive outsourcing of human experience has actually triggered a recognizable psychological phenomenon that researchers call the Google effect. Studies show that when we know information is readily available online or safely backed up on a hard drive somewhere, our brains adapt. We literally stop trying to remember the information itself. Instead, we just remember how to find it.
And here is where the true psychological cost becomes apparent. Because external memory, this massive digital archive we're building, is highly stable, sure, but it is completely devoid of emotion. It doesn't duplicate the emotional, constructive character of our internal brains. Our internal memories are messy. They shift, they breathe, but they are alive with feeling. By relying so heavily on the stable, cold external memory, we are fundamentally changing how we interact with our own history.
We are transforming from beings who live experiences into beings who merely index them. We're storing how to access the experience rather than storing the experience itself. We are trading the rich, vibrant somatic markers of a lived, breathed, felt moment for a cold, somatic map of where a file is saved on a server. We have the data, sure, but we are losing the ghost in the machine.
Which brings us to a pretty chilling philosophical threshold, one that was actually articulated centuries ago by John Locke regarding our personal identity. Locke proposed that our continuity, our very identity, is stitched together entirely by the thread of our personal memories. We are, quite literally, the sum of what we can remember experiencing.
So, if Locke is right, and our very sense of self is built entirely on the foundation of our personal episodic memories, then what happens to the self when those memories begin to change in their very nature? If who we are is defined by the moments we carry within us, what does it mean when we no longer carry them inside but merely hold the keys to a digital locker where they're kept?
And we are absolutely replacing that rich, time-traveling, autonoetic feeling with static digital archives. We are systematically stripping away the emotional, bodily essence of our memories by acting as documentarians rather than active, vulnerable participants in our own lives. We're looking at our lives through a pane of glass, capturing the light perfectly, but feeling absolutely none of the warmth.
We have to pause and deeply consider what remains of our human identity when the archive is completely full, bursting with terabytes of flawlessly recorded moments, but the mind itself feels empty. When the photo is perfectly sharp but the feeling is completely gone. Who are we becoming when we remember everything but feel nothing?
It leaves us with one final unresolved question to carry with us about the true cost of our extended digital minds. Is a life perfectly archived but never emotionally felt actually lived at all? It's really something to think about the next time you reach for your screen to capture a beautiful moment. Perhaps, just for a second, let those somatic markers do their work. Put the lens down and let yourself truly, deeply experience it instead.